Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales. And I overall enjoyed this film. There's some problems and issues that come into it as it's going along, but I overall like this more in line with what's going on with the first Pirates than all the other ones, and I definitely like it better than the fourth one. And it just brings it more back to a kind of more centered story. Whereas you've got the first one and the second and third one that come after that they are centered around the characters that we've known to come around with. The only thing that really had its favor in the fourth one was centering around Jack. And it just was kind of weird in my opinion. This one kind of returned more to turning to like the three character kind of focus and going around with that. So this starts off and we see this kid looking up like all these things, like he's got posters of Captain Jack Sparrow, stuff about a curse, and we find out that this is Henry Turner, Will Turner's son. He goes out, tries to find his father, drops an anchor on his foot, and lands on the Dutchman, which comes up, and he's telling his father, I found a way to break your curse, the Trident of Poseidon. And he's like, if that existed, I don't believe it. I don't believe that it exists. It's alright. I love you, son. And then kind of like lets him go on his way. It's like, that's pretty cool. That gets to the crux of what this whole movie's about, of trying to find the Trident of Poseidon and focusing more on Henry Turner, which I like that it kind of took just one kind of thing and kind of like grounded the movie on it. Now granted, it does offshoot into kind of like stupid and weird kind of territory, but not too weird. And kind of like detracts from the film in certain respects, but it's still most focused on trying to find the Trident of Poseidon for Henry to help his father. Granted, other people come in wanting the Trident as well, but that becomes the overall goal of the film, and I think it really helps it a little bit more than what we had in the fourth one, because it had a clear goal, but it just kind of meandered, in my opinion. So in this one, we then time jump to 9 years later, and we see all these things going around. It's like, okay, we see this kind of cool bank heist going on, and it's, of course, in typical Captain Jack kind of fashion, because we see this bank, and they're like, it's the most technologically advanced vault ever, and they open it up. It's like, what the hell? Captain Jackson there with the governor or mayor's wife, and it's like, oh, what's going on? Why am I here? Oh, okay. And then his crew starts pulling on the vault and kind of takes them out, and it's like, it actually pulls the bank with him. So we get a cool kind of scene, but we see that the vault's open and losing money and everything. So we get this cool chase scene, which is then the intersection of a new character, Karina Smith, who is a scientist and being tried for being a witch, even though she's just actually trying to do science stuff and try and do stuff with her father's journal and all that. It's like, okay, see how this goes. She wasn't really that much annoying, but as her character arc progresses through the movie, I kind of just wanted her to either not find out about her father or not have her father be tied in the way that it was. Because we find out later on in the movie that her father is Barbossa, and it's like, okay. And it's really weird because she doesn't, I mean, she kind of has the stubbornness qualities of Barbossa, but other than that, I don't really see any kind of connection that this actually benefits either party. Because not much else is really done with it throughout the rest of the movie. So, she kind of like intersects into Captain Jack's heist, but she gets like thrown under the bus, and Jack and his crew get back to their temporary ship because the Black Pearl is still in the bottle, and they don't have any money. There's one thing that the one like coin, and Jack takes it. So his crew mutinies, leaves him, and like, screw you. So Jack's down on his luck, and a kind of issue I have with this movie is it's very inconsistent in its portrayal with Captain Jack. He is kind of unevenly portrayed as being very stupid. And that's never what I really got from Captain Jack in like the first three movies. Now granted, I understand that they're trying to focus that his luck has just fucked off essentially and is like really just bad at this moment. But it introduces this element of like a real stupid Captain Jack. Now, granted, I understand drinking and doing all the stuff that he usually does really kind of like messes with your mind, but I wouldn't get it to the degree of stupidity that he kind of like evidences in this movie, which is kind of weird because then he has moments of like brilliance that appear and nothing's really done with that. So, of course, that's where the island is. Before this, we had seen that Henry was on this ship with the British Navy, of course, and they're like sailing around and all that, and they're trying to chase down these pirates and everything, and Will's looking and finds that it's the Devil's Triangle and all that. He's trying to tell them not to go in there, and he's like doing everything he can, but of course the captain and everything like, screw that, rips his sleeves to say that he's a deserter, and they lock him up. They go in, and they are attacked by the villain of the movie, Salazar. And it's interesting because they like go through the ship and they kill everybody except Henry, and it's like, oh, I always leave one man alive to tell the tale and all that. And they're all ghostly and everything, and their ship's all kind of like messed up and all that. And he's like, take a message to Captain Jack and all that, that once I get out of here, death is coming for him. And it's like, okay. And I really liked Salazar as a villain, but the issue comes into effect that the audio quality of his lines made it really hard to understand what he was saying in some parts. Most of the stuff that was important to the story I could understand, but every so often there would be certain lines of dialogue or certain words that I just could not make out. And I was just like, okay, something needed to be done better for at least his audio or whatnot, because everybody else is fine. So of course this leads Will to being like picked up and put in the hospital, and of course Karina's in there, and they're talking about she's hiding out as a nun, and he's getting ready to be pretty much tried and executed, and she wants his help, like trying to figure out the map and all that, and they're like both looking for the same thing, and of course she helps set him free. She bugs out, and they kind of capture again. We also see that Henry's able to find Captain Jack, who has traded the compass for booze, and of course this is a sign of betrayal to the compass, which is a strange thing to actually bring up story-wise, because there is no like foreshadowing of anything of that sort throughout any of the movies to begin with. And then of course Salazar and the rest of his crew break through out of the triangle, because evidently if you betray the compass it will unleash your worst fear upon you. And they're going on a pirate rampage, destroying Barbossa's fleet, and of course Barbossa's afraid of that, goes to a witch to try and figure out how to stop this, and of course she somehow has the compass now, because of course with his bad luck Captain Jack also got captured and pretty much getting ready to be executed as well, and Barbossa's trying to figure out how to stop his fleet from being destroyed, and of course he goes off to make a parlay with Salazar, and losing a lot of his crew in the process. So he's got the compass and like, okay, I'll lead you to Jack. He's like, okay. So Jack and Karina are pretty much rescued by Henry and his crew, because Henry was able to find the rest of the mutineered crew, and they of course have this great scene of like getting Jack out of all the stuff that's going on, and they go off, they use their dinky little boat to go on, and then of course we get the one kind of commander at the island to go after them in their British ship. It's like, that was a really weird part. Didn't really need to be there all, actually. It just was another ship to be destroyed by Salazar. And of course they're going after Jack. They've almost got to him, and of course they get out on a boat because the crew's like, we ain't dealing with this. Kind of like go off, and then they're trying to make it to this island, and we see this kind of cool scene where they use ghost sharks to like go after them, and it's like, okay, that's interesting, but why are they able to control the sharks and everything? I understand if it's the people who died on the ship, because we get a flashback seeing a young Captain Jack Sparrow, how he deftly maneuvered them to go into the Devil's Triangle and die and become the ghostly figures they are, and how Captain Jack got the compass and why he should never betray it, and got all these other things. It was interesting, but it's like, it could have been made a movie of itself, the origin story of Captain Jack, and here it's just like, okay. It just kind of lengthens the movie in a way that really didn't need to be. I mean, it's a cool scene and all, but I would rather have just had it either been alluded to or talked about, and then have a movie of itself done. So, of course, we get to another part where it's kind of like, okay, Henry, Karina, and Jack are on the island, and we get this really weird scene where they're at like Hangman's Bay, and this one dude's like, oh, you'll do this for me, pay your debt, you'll marry my sister, and it's like, okay. And then Barbossa and the rest of his crew come aboard the island, and they pretty much make a deal with Jack. It's like, yeah, we're gonna go with you to find the Trident of Poseidon. Yeah, okay. I was like, yeah, Barbossa always does the double cross kind of stuff. I was like, alright. So, of course, Barbossa uses Blackbeard's sword because he took that from Blackbeard in the last movie and uses it to bring the pearl back, and they are able to get to the island. Now, here's where it starts getting a little bit weird. Barbossa had the diary that Karina was using to find the map, use the stars to lead them to the island for the Trident of Poseidon. And of course she freaked out when she saw the ghost and all that because she was a scientist and all that. And we got a running joke of like a horologist that went far too long. It's like, okay, it's not that funny. Move on. That's another thing in this movie. A lot of the jokes is like really hit or miss, and sometimes they go on a little bit too long. But the biggest issue with what's going on with Barbossa and the daughter aspect is Barbossa would have to have known about the Trident of Poseidon before the Aztec gold incident. And if he had, why did he not just track down his daughter to begin with, find this ruby bit, because they get to the island and the only way to activate the power of the Trident or whatnot is to make this ruby thing whole. So they put that on that and it does it, and we see the Trident and all that. If Barbossa knew about this, why didn't he and his crew just kind of go on there? Because they could go onto land in their cursed Aztec state. They could have went there, put it on, used that, and a lot of the stuff really wouldn't have needed to happen. It's just a plot hole that, like, screws up the continuity a lot. It's like, okay. But it overall doesn't completely derail the movie, and it's not really about this movie that it derails. It's really about the kind of rest of the continuity. But since this wasn't built to be a franchise this long in the making, I can kind of understand why it came about. So, of course, they get there. It looks like a map of the sky with all the stars and everything, and they get down to it. It's like, oh, to do something to it, you have to divide. To break the curses or whatnot, you have to divide it. Okay. So, we see that Henry was captured by Salazar, and Salazar possesses him and is able to gain hold of the Trident and is trying to kill Jack and all that. So while this is going on, Henry is like recovering and everything, and Karina's like, oh, we have to break the Trident. And they do that, and of course that breaks all the curse on Salazar and his crew, and they're like all human, and we see them underwater, and they're like, shit, we can't breathe underwater anymore. They come out, it's like, oh, but then this giant kind of like parting of the sea starts taking effect and like closing back down. It's like, oh crap. So we get this scene where the Pearl is able to lower its anchor and, of course, trying to bring the rest of the people up. And then this is where we get into like a weird spot, because Salazar like fucks over his crew completely and is just hell bent on killing Jack and all that and climbing up the anchor and everything. This is where Karina figures out that Barbossa is her father, and then he sacrifices himself to kill Salazar and save them, and it's like, it really wasn't needed. It really lacked any emotional resonance, and it was just like, somebody needed to die because they needed to die. It was like, okay. It just really didn't do anything for like Karina's journey or Barbossa's journey. It was just like going through the motions, like, alright. She's like, And of course, afterwards, she's like, I'm Karina Barbosa. Okay, that's cool. Everybody's kind of like cool with what's going on. Jack and his crew have the Pearl back and everything. He's kind of like used his old crew with Barbosa's decimated crew. It's like everything's hunky-dory. We get back to Henry's home, and of course Will has his reunion with him, and they were able to get Keira Knightley as Elizabeth, and that was a pretty cool reunion as well. And we see Henry and Karina kind of like being their own couple. It's like, okay, that's a pretty good ending. And I'm like, I would have been perfectly fine if they ended it there. But then we get the post-credit scene where Davy Jones, for some reason, is alive again. And still crabified. Even though the breaking of the Trident of Poseidon breaks all curses. I just wish they kind of had ended the story there. Because it just like, why? Why reintroduce Davy Jones? We got the mileage that we needed out of him in the second and third film. What is this to accomplish? So that's kind of like my only main gripe. I liked everything up till that, and it's like, oh god. And we also see that Captain Jack has gotten a monkey as well, and they're just like kind of sailing around. So it's like, okay, we're going to have another pirate war or whatnot. It's like, there can be other things done with this franchise. We can have kind of like a reboot or whatnot and have a Star Wars kind of thing, bringing in new characters, which is what I thought Henry and Karina could have been done, being like mentored by Captain Jack or whatnot, and Jack kind of like sailing off and giving it to them or who knows what, you know? But, of course, they're still like, okay, Captain Jack is too pivotal to this franchise. And I just hope that they're able to do better things with him. It's just like, they don't know where to take this franchise. They're like, it makes money! We can do whatever! And it's like, no, because you can see franchise fatigue is setting in, and people are like, why am I still doing this? I mean, I love Johnny Depp doing Captain Jack, but it's like, you need to figure out what to do with the character. And that's mainly down to the writing and everything. You can have a great actor for a role, but if their material starts to get worse over time, it doesn't matter how good they are. You're still going to have the atrophying and the, like, wasting away of the franchise. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.